welcome to that spiritual, actual, factual answers to questions he asking. You find them inside you, recite you, reciting the records of cash. We laughing, we drafting the passion through vary. It's time for that comedy, dramedy, all of the fanciest, catchiest acronyms. Listeners, listen, we traveling. Conscious is always unraveling. The reading you're having is mapping you back to your natural habitat. Abracadabra, it's magicless, passing it. To top it off, the host, all the classiest. Now, what were you asking for? All of the answers? What? All the answers.
Are we recording? Because I'm just ready to start. Are you ready, Cassidy, or what? What is happening with you?
Safety. Oh my God, hi.
Did you fart? Did you fart?
I said, oh my God, hi.
No, you said safety. Remember safety in the 80s? Did you ever do that?
No. I need you to explain that.
Desmond did. In the 80s, if you farted, you would say safety, because there was some game that was being, I don't remember.
And
but
you
there
had
was
to eat it if you didn't or something. For me, it was the thumb
on the
to
forehead.
the forehead with the pinky out, which makes like a unicorn.
Safety.
Or a
And
narwhal.
you would do that and say safety.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah,
then I
maybe
think
we
that
said
meant
safety.
you weren't it, or you didn't lose.
I think it's you didn't have to eat the fart. Seriously, that's what's our translation.
How are you going
of
to
it.
eat
Not
the
that you
fart?
have to eat a fart.
How do you eat it?
It's figurative. You're just a fart eater if you don't. Safety in like theory.
Okay, so fart and safety.
Fart safety.
Now we had a technical issue, and we have audio safety and fart safety.
Fart safety, audio safety.
I think you need to know something here. This is one beverage I have operating, green juice that I made. This is
Speaking of farts.
another beverage, which is tea. This is a third beverage, which is La Croix. This is a fourth beverage, which is hot water with lemon. Why so many beverages, you ask? A, I like a lot of beverages. B, I have not had espresso today because, I know if you can believe it, last night, in the middle of the night, Cassidy, I woke up 2 times mid-vomit. Have you ever done that?
No. Like you'd already puked on yourself a little bit?
Let me be clear. Here's what I actually mean. It was like, have you ever been awakened by the thrust of the need to vomit?
Maybe. Anyway.
And it seems to be a thing that happens for me. So like I'm dead asleep, and then all of a sudden I'm like, have to puke. I get up, I run to the bathroom, and I'm doing the thing with puking. I don't know if this happens to you either, but I usually end up like spit out a lot before I puke.
Yeah.
Like I'm there
going
like, you know what I mean?
You're not alone. I'm just hating this conversation, but pray
Great.
continue.
So
Fast forward about a minute and a half for those of you who are really triggered by this sort of thing.
Thank you. So I don't end up puking ever, but the puke was gonna fucking happen. The spitting happened, and then the puke would subside. Then I go back to bed, and I did a bunch of EFT tapping stuff. That helped. Then 3 hours later, dead asleep, thrusted awake by the need to puke, didn't puke. And I could feel in my nervous system that it was my body trying to get rid of the second espresso I had at 2:00 in the afternoon, which I've done millions of times.
Yeah.
Have 2 espressos in a day. But my body, I think, is going through some changes or something, because right now it's just extra sensitive. I don't remember if we had an episode after Thanksgiving.
Uh-huh.
But did I tell you what happened on Thanksgiving?
I don't think we did. Maybe. Shit, I can't remember. What happened on Thanksgiving?
I don't think we did.
No.
But what happened was I went to a new friend's house with Squeezel the dog, my canine. She got attacked by a dog that was there that bit her, like a big dog, bit her on the side of her tiny, tiny dog body. And it made us both really scared. And she made really scary squealing noises for a long time. And I was worried she was dying. So I was like, I think I have to leave. So I go to leave the house, and, you know, it's nobody's fault, but like everybody felt awkward and it was weird, right? And the really sweet people whose house I was at said, like, please take some pie. You can't leave without pie. So I take the pie. I come home. I put Squeeze down in the bed. She sleeps with me, and she passes out immediately. She's exhausted. I go to town on these 2 pieces of pie. And then like 5 minutes later, I'm on the phone with current man friend, dating person, and who's name, I guess we still haven't said. But anyway, I get on the phone with him. He's talking, and mid-sentence, he's like, we're having a normal human conversation. And I go, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. I have to vomit. Because all of a sudden, I really had to vomit. And I go to the bathroom, and that pie was not happy in my body. So I don't like vomiting, to your earlier point about people feeling triggered. I really don't like doing it. My body just hates that experience. So I'm over the toilet Thanksgiving evening, worried my dog is dying, having to vom, and it wouldn't happen. So I did a bunch of EFT tapping. Even though I feel like I have to puke, I deeply and completely love and accept, and I'm tapping and I'm tapping. And it passes and it turns into a series of, and this is something I would say just to be funny, but it was true, epic farts. Like epic. Like wake the dog from slumber in the other room farts. Where she comes trotting in like, what was that earthquake that just happened? Are you all right? Anyway, I didn't puke, but for about an hour and a half, I had to do a bunch of EFT just to get a lot of farts to move. So this is like the second time in several nights where I've like puked in the middle of the night or wanted to puke really badly and then didn't.
Right.
And I think yesterday's was from the espresso, just because I could feel it coming through my like meridians. Like I could feel that was what wanted out of my body.
All right.
So
I want to do some peer counseling with you on this, because I just want to point out that you had two kind of back to back, not far separated, seemingly intense puke wants. This is what I'm hearing. Okay. Like puke needs that didn't turn out happening, but your body was revolting. The conversation is revolting, but your body was rejecting something. Mm-hmm. The first one seems to be connected to an extremely traumatic, physical, probably you had a lot of adrenaline and all the things that course through your body as a result. And then you threw sugar on top of that.
Right.
Or something. I don't know about the medical part of it, but my point being that it's like you can tie one to the pie and one to the coffee, but how do they tie to each other is my question.
Well, here's my theory. I was about to state my theory, which is that in the last 2 or 3 weeks, I have had 3 profound healing experiences for myself. One was I met with this naturopath in Durango who ended up doing some parts work with me where we're like integrating young parts of the psyche, and it was deep. It was very deep. It was 2 hours. Another was a 4-hour, oh my God, channeled healing session where, again, there was parts work involved, but it was like mixed in with divine light stuff. And then the third piece is I've had some like big breakthroughs in therapy lately where I'm like really, I think I was talking about this, where I'm like really having to confront my therapist. I had to like hold her feet to the fire, and that brought up like so much shit for me. Then 4 is Mancos, Colorado is a vortex, and I live literally at the fucking center of it. So I feel like what's happening is my body's going through a lot. Like it's changing, and probably, knowing me, becoming even more sensitive, which is annoying, but probably true. And then I'm like, I'll just behave how I normally behave with the food items. And my body's like, nah.
I mean, yeah, as someone who's known you for a long time and has been alongside you through some of your sort of intense body experiences that seem to be tied to like body chemistry, you know, and other things.
Yeah.
Like I definitely have watched. Yeah. It makes sense that like you are someone who like you have a thing and then you are sensitive to sugar or you're sensitive to caffeine. You're sensitive to these things. Yeah. So then as soon as you get more vulnerable, basically.
Yeah.
As soon as you make yourself vulnerable to those sensitivities, they re-emerge.
I mean, now, that's my theory, but it could also be simpler. It could be like, you know, I'm just having more connection to my emotional truth out here, which is also true. Mancos really like does that for me. It puts me like right in the center of my emotional experience. Mm-hmm. Like there's no separating myself from it, which is really intense. So it could be like, it could be that But it's too coincidental that like right after I had this pie, I was talking to the man friend and he did say, adrenaline, something about like adrenaline locks in the joints or somewhere and then it turns into lactic acid. We need a fact checker. And I said, you're man facting me, aren't you? And he was like, I think I am. I think this is a man fact. I don't really know what I'm saying, but I feel like it's true. But I feel like the same way. I feel like there's something about adrenaline and like if it gets stopped mid trauma, dog getting bitten on body, mom thinking dog is dying, and then released again later, except it came right after the pie and it tasted like pie in my throat when I was going to puke.
Well, that's what was in your body. That was top of tummy right there. Like, of course, that's what you're going to taste. Sorry.
I just think, I don't know. I don't know. I don't really know, but that's my current theory. So, but what I was trying to get to with all that was like, so I'm in therapy this morning and I'm talking about how fucking tired I was not having espresso. I was like, I don't know if I can do human life.
Wow.
I don't think I can survive on the earth without espresso. And so she gets me talking and we're talking and then I wind up sharing with her that I have a lot of disappointment running through my body right now about a bunch of different things. And by the end of naming the disappointment, plural, the disappointments that I've been feeling, I felt 50% less foggy and tired. So like a lot of the tired from the espresso, from not having espresso was really just like, I need to express these emotions, express them. Like for real, I think the espresso does this thing where it like, I don't know, it does something, it activates me, but I think my body needs a break from it. So in the meantime, I'm going to have to maybe like be more on top of expressing my feelings as they're happening.
Okay. That sounds like a good idea, frankly. That sounds great.
Okay. I remember one time I was doing a play at Capitol Stage in Sacramento and Michael Stevenson and I, who for the listeners is the wonderful human being, artistic director, friend of all of ours who runs that theater now. And he said, we were having a conversation about I go, I don't remember how it got there, but he goes, wait, what do you mean? Like feel my feelings when I'm having them? Like in the time when they're happening? And he was making a joke, but I always remember that because it's like, it's that jarring of a principle when you drop it, when you step into it.
And we get to joke about that all the time because that's, again, goes back to like that. It kind of is the theme of everything we always talk about. Except
that I guess it's sort of different for me because what I'm talking about is just stating a feeling. I'm not talking about feel the feeling and bring the divine light to it and then see what happens, which is usually what I would do. I always bring divine light to a feeling because it elevates me from the feeling into the divine qualities that are a higher vibrational frequency than the feeling is. Feelings have to be felt, but to me, I've said this before on here, that's step one. You feel the feelings, then it's like bring light to it. And then the feelings like open into this whole other dimensional realm of brightness and happiness. I guess for me, part of why I found all this divine light shit was because if I'm just sitting with feelings, sometimes they can just make me feel worse.
Right. You can just wallow and sit there and be.
Yeah, it just doesn't elevate. It doesn't liberate. It just wah, wah. But then today I had this really fun, positive experience where it was like, oh, all I did was state them. I didn't even like go in the records and bring the light and any of that shit. I just was like, here's what's happening.
I wonder if there's a delineation between like, please correct me if I'm wrong. This is just sort of a theory that's forming in my head. Like that the difference being when you talk about, well, yeah, when I have my feelings, I bring divine light to them, but that's like a process that you actually have to engage with. So is what you're normally doing kind of like going, feeling, set it aside, feeling, set it aside. And then when you get to it, then you can do the process. But what you are maybe saying is add to that list of things to do. When you're feeling the feeling, at least acknowledge it and feel it right then as well. You may not go through the process of the divine light right then, and you can get to that later when you have focus and attention. Have you been setting things aside to shine the light on later? Is that what the difference is?
It's more like maybe, but more the way I experience it is more like I'm just doing life. I'm bopping along and I'll be like, oh man, I feel heavy or bummed out, or I don't even know, something's not great. So I open the records, bring light to that feeling, and then I get clear on what the feeling was. Oh, I was feeling sad about whatever, because sometimes I'll cry. Like when I bring divine light to a heaviness, if it needs to be processed as a feeling, it gets processed as whatever feeling it was in the light moment. Mm-hmm. So I think, in other words, my feelings often show up as sensations. But then there's another thing that'll happen where if a big feeling is happening, like in dating, I get a lot of feelings come up, which is normal. Everybody has that. But so with dating, big feelings will come up. They're there right then. I know exactly what they are when they're happening. It's not a sensation. It's like a feeling. And then oftentimes those ones have to be communicated and dealt with together relationally. But if it's not a relational issue causing the feeling, I think I don't tend to, I wouldn't say I put them aside. I would say, I'm every day in the records. Right. Day.
So I guess then my question is, what is the difference between just naming your feeling? What's this new step? And how is it different than
what new step?
This awareness that you need to be someone who feels their feelings in the moment now.
Oh, no.
And how is that different than what you've been doing?
Oh, no. So I've always had the awareness that you got to have your feelings in the moment now. It's just that it's still, I feel a lot of times like an alien or a robot in this life, in the sense that I have this too evolved, weird, bring the divine light to your feelings process that I do for what normal people just have a feeling and then go to the store. There's no sitting in the records and bringing light to the
right.
Already I have the extra step.
Right.
So what I'm articulating is that I did what I think normal people do today. And for once, it actually did something productive. I never have that's not true. How I would frame it is again, if it's a relational feeling, let's say you and I are having an issue and I have a feeling about it. And I say to you hey, when you said that, I felt bad. And you go, oh my God, I didn't mean it that way. I'm so sorry. I can totally see how it would land that way. My bad. And I go, I love you.
Right.
That feeling happened in the moment. I articulated it now. We processed it, and it created a sense of relief for me because you met me there inside that feeling. And we dealt with it relationally because the issue creating the original feeling was relational.
Right.
But if it's not a thing where you have to talk to a person, I seem to need this divine light thing to process stuff effectively. There's a lot of stuff I can just talk to people about and feel better. But then and that's my way of dealing with feelings.
Okay.
But another way is this divine light thing. But today it was all I did in therapy. It wasn't relationally she and I had some, I guess you could say relationally she heard me. She held space for me. She helped me name it, but it wasn't relational. It didn't feel connective between she and I. It was more oh, I'm really disappointed in 9 things. And then after saying that, after the conversation with her, I got off and I was I'm not as tired as I was.
That is also interesting. Yeah.
But a lot of the tired was just those feelings wanting to lift. And usually what I would do is go to the records and lift them in that way. But I just haven't had a lot of experience where in therapy, I just say a feeling and then I feel better. A lot of times I say a feeling and then I'm great, now I feel terrible because I'm in that feeling.
Yeah, right. But so there's just different levels at which things are needed.
I think so.
In this case, just speaking, it was, and I've had that experience where literally the words are what will break me in a good way. When I finally just say, I am sad. Then I'll, if I say the words to another human being, I feel angry. Oh, there it comes. Then it'll come out of wherever it's locked.
And I've
by
seen
using
that with
words.
you.
Yeah,
I've seen that with you a bunch. I love that.
You've seen it here on the podcast. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I'll say the words and I'll start to cry. The other thing that just reminded me of that when you said you got less sleepy when you finally spoke the words. My therapist used to call me out on, we kind of together noticed that like I'd start yawning in the middle of sessions sometimes, and even like fading, like eyes wanting to close and fall asleep. And not when granted, that would happen sometimes when we were doing like a guided visualization thing. That's understandable because I'm going into a meditative state. Yeah. But when it would just, we'd be going back and forth, and I would be like, and we theorize, and who fucking knows anything really? It's all theory. But that was one of my sort of physical, emotional avoidant tactics.
Yeah.
Like my body would be like, oh, if you go to sleep, you don't have to look at this.
Well,
you don't have to face this.
Yeah, 100%. In Sufi school, this was a thing that got addressed regularly. Like it's a very common thing with divine light transmission work that people go to sleep. And my teacher taught us that this was like C.D. Al-Jamal who taught us. He said, when the thing is too hard to internalize, the mind will go unconscious, put the body to sleep. And then you're receiving the energy without your mind in the way. That's one thing that'll happen. A different thing that'll happen is resistance, just straight resistance. And like what you're describing, where you go like, nope, and you're just out.
Like, I think I literally just fell asleep mid-session one time, like blinked out. And
how would that happen if you're mid-conversation, though?
It was weird. It was a little creepy. I was like, whoa, okay, hi, okay. Look at thing now. Like,
what a trip.
It kind of freaked me out. Yeah.
Huh.
It was
I just asked Sarah to hop on, our guest for today. So I think she's maybe going to do that now. But this is a perfect topic actually to talk to her about. And I'll tell you why when she gets on.
Good. I know nothing about her.
What's up, girl? Hey, Sarah.
Hey, how's it going?
So you guys have met, right?
Online a couple weeks ago in the reading.
Yeah.
Not the one that I missed yesterday.
Correct. So for the listeners and just for more context, Cassidy, Sarah is the person who is my local theater compatriot. She's got all these solo shows. She's been performing in this area for years. But everywhere I go, in the first month and a half I lived here, every human I met was like, they'd be like, what do you do? And I'd tell them, they'd be like, have you met Sarah Syverson yet? And I'd be like, I guess I will. And then 6 weeks in, finally it happened. And there was a lot of synergy, and we have really fun creative projects that we're developing together now that feel really, really fun. And we do things like go to the hot springs in Durango and have lady lunch. And Sarah's just an all around amazing person. She's got this beautiful house with goats outside and a farm she made. And every time I'm over there, she's always feeding me stuff that came from nature. She's like, would you like this bone broth that I just whipped up from a cow that I slaughtered myself? No, that part's not true. Anyway, we've got cool projects. Sarah's just a creative generator of magnitude. And also, interestingly, a deep kind of spiritual practitioner in her own right, meditator, spiritual thing, goes to a group with a teacher that isn't a teacher, has her own deep spiritual path. So we get to bond a lot about being spiritual ladies who also create theater, which for me is exactly where I want to start our conversation. But the conversation Cassidy and I were just having also relates to you in an interesting way. I have questions for you about it. We were talking about when you have a feeling, a human mammal, such as yourself, and you have an emotion, and then you say it to someone else, you name the feeling. And I was talking about how I just had therapy this morning, and I was actually having the experience of all I did was correctly name the feelings I was having. And in so doing, I felt less physically tired.
Yes.
I felt better, and the weight lifted and everything was better. But that for me, that in the past, that was not my experience with feelings. That the only way I could process feelings was to bring divine light to the feelings, and then they would come up and function and process. So I'm sort of having more and more normal human emotional experiences now that I'm 100 years old. So I wanted to ask you what that's like for you. When you have a feeling and you state it, we could use an example of a real life conversation you and I had if you wanted to, or different ones.
Yeah, for sure.
What happens for you? What's all that like for you?
I mean, I think it's different in different moments and times, but I'm thinking about, like, we had this great conversation about, we were talking about the Enneagram a little bit, and I went home and looked up the 2, just the helper, and I was like, oh, I'm so that. And then I was like, oh, I do all these things. Like, I was really like getting on myself about like how I'm absurd, like I'm like Mancus Citizen of the Year, right? Like that I serve. And then I was like, oh, I'm such an asshole about how I serve. Cause I'm like, it's really about me when I'm giving to you. And like, when I listened to the Enneagram maybe years ago, and then just re-listened to it because you were like, hey, maybe look up the number 2. And so when I listened to the helper, I was like, oh, it just hurt in some way, because I could see the parts of me that.
Yep.
That's a weirdly common experience with people in the Enneagram. It's like one that you go, fuck, really? No. Oh, God. That's probably your number. That's like a joke, but it's kind of true. You start getting into it. We start by seeing the worst version of the thing that we are working through.
Right. Yeah. Right. That's a really good point, Cassidy, because there's this part that's like so aspirational to be deeply of service in a way that is also of service to me, to everyone that it touches. And that's like the beautiful part of the 2, right? But then the other part is like the self-serving, like, I give you this spoon and then you love me after. Yeah. And so yesterday I actually I was like really cry yesterday a lot. It was like, normally when I get like that, I just won't text people back or call people back. I'll just wait until I'm through it. But yesterday I was like, our mutual friend, Tim, texted and he's like, hey, how you doing? And I was like, bad. Like, I'm an asshole. I feel unworthy. Like, and then it was just really great to name it. And I did that actually with a couple of friends yesterday. And it was relaxing and helpful to do that. So I don't know if that answers your question.
So you felt relaxed after you stated the feelings you were having.
It helped. Yeah. Cause normally for me anyway, I would be like, I got this. I'll just take care of it in here or not even like push it down a little bit and not let it come up. Or I would also take it like to meditation, which can sometimes work too. But, I think for me, it's actually in that particular instance, it was really good to just say, I'm kind of an asshole. Like, or I can be sort of an asshole. And then of course my friends are going to be like, you're not an asshole. But then they're listening and they're like, oh yeah, I get it. I'm kind of an asshole too. Like, we're all assholes. And then there's some relaxation in the body around that.
Relaxation. Do you ever have the experience of you'll say a feeling that you're having and then by saying it, you feel worse? Like locked into the feeling or more present to the feeling?
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, actually, okay. So this is part of it too, because I did go, like I talked to a couple friends, texted with a couple friends, and then also I wrote my teacher and they were like, Rajas, you're in Rajasic, you're in like emotion. Like, have you dropped into the silence yet and moved past that? And that also was helpful, but both things were helpful to me, really, to see it. And then to like, it was a different experience to like, just go to that deep space and move beyond it. I don't know if you're at.
And so the deep space that you're talking about is, and this is a good transition into your spiritual practice that I wanted to ask you about. The deep space, you know how they say there's a way that we can use spiritual practice to like spiritually bypass our feelings.
Like in an unhealthy way? Is that what you're saying? Or just...
Yeah, spiritual bypass is just a term that means, are you using your spiritual thing you do, whatever that may be, to not have a feeling? Like, oh, I'm in the space beyond a feeling. We can either travel through the feeling to the space beyond, or we can skip over it or skip around it into, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So are they, in this case, when these teachers said what they said, I think what you're saying is they were encouraging you to go into the feeling and go through it.
Yes. Yeah.
And then on the other side of it, you said the deep space. Can you tell us more about like, what's it like on the other side of it for you?
That place is very like deeply quiet and full and robust. It's a very full silence, like a very full quiet space that's like thick and voluminous and solid and strong, like a pillar in a way. that runs through.
Did you have to get initiated into being able to tap into that place, or was it always there?
Like I don't know what you mean by initiated.
So sometimes in different spiritual traditions or lineages, literally what you're doing is when you sit with the teacher of the lineage, like oftentimes this is popular in Hindu traditions or in India. Like if you go sit with a guru in India, they're transmitting what's called Shaktiput a lot of times, or just divine awareness into your body just by you being in their presence. Like they emanate a something that then activates that something in you that literally, had you not met that guru or teacher, you could not activate yourself into that Shaktiput. You can't just like meditate and then you get there. Like it has to be passed through humans. So I'm wondering, is this of that ilk or is it totally not? I'm just curious.
I don't really know. I mean, I know that I've been in this particular lineage for about 15 years, and I know I have a lot of physical experiences. Like the first couple of times that I sat with this teacher, I was really butterfly-esque when I first came, like very flitty and ungrounded. And for whatever reason, I fainted, like dead fainted into my friend's lap the first couple of times I was there. And he was like, you need to come. He would say something different to every student, but he was like, to me, he was like, you need to come regularly. And for a long time, I would need to just lay on my back while we meditated because it was too much. And then if I skipped at all and I had gotten to the point where I could sit, I would then have to lay on my back again. And so that, and I think that all the students experience, it feels like they're different rays of the sunlight as well within the group that I'm in. And so I just experience things really physically very strongly. Like I had one class up there where I fainted and then I vomited and then I had diarrhea like twice. They ended up like giving me different clothes and whatever, but it was super physical. And then, I was so grateful. It was like some sort of purging. So however it is, I'm sure if you talk to a different student in the same lineage, they would have a different experience to share in a way.
Yeah, I hear that and I go, that's the transmission of Shaktiput. I mean, that's what that is. Like you're not just sitting in a room with some people and then you pass out. You're sitting in a room with people who are deep practitioners of this, whatever. And by being in that space, and I'm sure they travel into that space within themselves when they're leading the group or holding the room. And then by them being in that space, your being is invited into that space and then you throw up. Or pass out or whatever it is, which we were just talking about before you came on. Also,
we have covered vomiting prior to your arrival. We covered vomiting as a result of some interaction with something. We've covered falling asleep or passing out. So it's interesting that it always happens. It cycles back in. Whatever we talk about
every time.
Oh,
talk, stuff happens, and then the guest comes on, and that thing comes up again.
It's so interesting because I've listened to your podcast too, and I'm like, what are they talking about before I come on?
Well, thank you for sharing all that. I mean, something else that strikes me sort of relating kind of all these threads together is, you've shown up in my reality as someone who's like, Katie, how are you feeling? Tell me your feelings. No, what are your feelings? And I'm like, all right, I guess all right, here, fine. It's fine. And then I've felt better from doing that. And it's, that's like what a friend does sometimes, or it's one thing a friend can do. But I heard you just say a second ago that when you reached out to yesterday, some folks, that there was a part of you that didn't want to maybe reach out. You wanted to like go in and deal with it on your own. So it's interesting for me to hear you as someone who has actively pushed me to state what I'm feeling, own that you too sometimes don't want to go there and you're going to go in and process and whatever. Like, I think what I'm just acknowledging is like, it continues to baffle and amaze me how this feelings thing is like the thing that human mammals don't know what the fuck to do with. Like, we all get so weird around having them, saying them, not having them, processing it alone, doing it in a group, join a thing, join a lady, talk to a person, pay a lady. All of this shit is just to have fucking feelings. They're this like total thing that like, I don't know, this comes up a lot whenever I lead corporate trainings. I do a fair amount of like leading corporate executives to like have feelings and share them, or like be authentic in presentation skills stuff. It comes up there. And then of course it comes up with my healing clients, my spiritual healing clients, where all the time the thing is like, well, first you have to feel it. And then we go somewhere from there. Nobody knows how to do the feelings. And we all know how, because we've all trained and we know how. But do you know what I mean? How like it's so basic to who we are, and yet hard.
Yeah.
And the source of so much, the inability to deal with our feelings is the source of, I'm not going to give a percent, but so much of the active trauma in the world is a direct result of people's inability to process their feelings. Like people who are engaged in, like a Proud Boy or someone like that, someone who's engaged in like sort of hate energy. Like I'm theorizing, but it's like everything is going to boil back down to that person feeling unexpressed, unheard, unfelt.
I
Yeah.
think it's on all sides. I have friends that are like super left, like raw food, goddesses that look like they're so perfect, like in their body. But they have, if you put them right next to a poor boy, they could have similar challenges. I mean, put me next to a poor boy, I probably have similar challenges too, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it is the active source. I feel like it's that confusion, that inability, that challenge that then leads to the next step, which is inflicting harm on others.
Yeah.
That's what I am so concerned about. That we harm, and it happens in micro versions too, within the less actively harmful types as well. Right. We inflict, there's super unhealthy twos who inflict a lot of harm on people by being, by manipulating them emotionally because of their unrecognized work that they've done or whatever. Yeah.
And super manipulative 8s and 3s. And we
threes,
all have
big time.
Yeah. We all have, back to the Enneagram. It's like, I like what Cassidy was saying. I like what people say where they're like, read through all of them. And the one that you cringe the most at, that's probably you. Except if it's an 8, because everyone cringes at the 8.
Oh, and unless it's a 7, because everyone wants to be a 7.
Everyone wants to be a 7, and everybody hates the 8.
Right.
Guess who's an 8? This bitch. That's right. So you're not alone. It's just, but my point being, it's like very common, very, very common when you look at your Enneagram to be like, fuck my fucking life. I'm also a little sad. I'm sad that we didn't get to talk about it. Because I was the one who was like, look at your 2, bitch. And you were like, I didn't say it like that. I didn't say it. I did not. Nothing like that at all.
Yeah, we could talk about it, definitely. I just happened to call you yesterday. Plus, we had like a 3-hour Zoom. That was amazing. So I knew you were.
Oh my God, that's right. We did read a 3-hour goddamn play yesterday. Jesus Christ. It's a good play, isn't it?
Loved it. I don't know why even. Yeah, I loved it.
It's my favorite play.
It's your favorite play?
It kind of is. It's my most Okay, it's this play called Equivocation, just for listeners. It's a crazy play sort of about Shakespeare and an experience in a total fictionalized thing. But it's my most unfulfilled play because I workshopped it in the original form with the playwright. And now I've missed out on like 5 chances to be in productions of it. Never gotten to do it. Didn't even get to do the reading yesterday because of my own calendar mistake.
Interesting.
And it's a play that I have so much passion about, but cannot quite be involved with, find a chance to do.
Yeah. And for folks listening, oh my gosh, I don't remember the last time I read a play that dense, full of information and history and fucking characters to track and narratives you're jumping in and out of and realities that are different. It was a really complex, intelligently written piece of theater. It's interesting stuff. But so I wanted to come back, Sarah, if you don't mind, to the spiritual stuff a little bit, just to find out a little more about, like, for you, what was it that like got you on this particular spiritual kind of track with this particular teacher? I know that you have a background in some Zen center type meditative stuff. Anyway, so like, what led you there? What were you seeking? What did you find? What was it for? Why them? Mm-hmm. Any of that?
Okay. Yeah. Like the shortest version of the story would be that I had come back from Northern California, having spent time at Green Gulch Zen Center, which was like a really good foundation for a flitty lady to ground down in discipline in daily meditation. So I had come back from the Bay Area via Santa Fe. I spent like a year in Santa Fe on a subsistence farm and running a bed and breakfast down there, and had come back to the Durango area and really wanted a teacher. I had connected with a woman named Fu at the Zen Center out in California and felt like a real resonance with her. And so I had come back to Durango and thought like, how am I this is this tiny little town, full of like Olympic athletes and people that like to trail run. And, like, where am I going to find a spiritual teacher? And I was reading, oh my gosh, you guys heard of those Truth versus Falsehood? Is it David Hawkins, or Hawkins, at least his last name? And my friend Don was also reading that book, and he's like, hey, I think I've met a true spiritual teacher. And he was working at a restaurant in Durango, and the person had come in to eat there. And somebody was like, that's a true spiritual teacher, or whatever, that person. And so Don was like, I'm going to go check it out. And so he went, and then he was like, yeah, I think it's the real thing. And I was like, well, I want to come, like, can I come? And he's like, I can't invite you. I'm like a new student. He didn't feel comfortable with it. And so I was feeling frustrated. Like, how do I get there? I was at the health food store, because all amazing things happen at health food stores. I ran into Don and then another student there who was like an older student who was like, yeah, I'll connect you to the teacher. And so I started going. I mean, and I think what I wanted was to grow and move into what was next for me. I mean, that's all that I can really remember from that time period, was like that sense of like not feeling cooked yet and done, and wanting to grow. And then meeting him and having a really physical experience in a way that I never had at the Zen Center or at the various other things that I had gone to in my life. He felt like a true teacher, and he always has, like that sense of, you figure it out for yourself. I'm not going to tell you. Ask really good questions. And then like the vibration in the body is really intense, and it's changed over what happens in the class, how I experience it in myself, and how it manifests in the world changes through time. It's always this sense of like, what's next? Which is so like, that is so priceless, to be able to be on the receiving end of, and to integrate and to practice in the world. That is really compelling for me.
The sense of what's next.
Not the sense of what's next, but like actually what's happening. But like, there's an aspiration for what's next, but like the actual like living movement and vibration in the body is what's so potent to me.
Yeah. That's my experience as well.
Yeah. The lineage is a lot about like transformation of the cellular structure. And I have this very like visceral, very physical feeling in the body of that occurring in a different way.
Yeah. Do you mind sharing the name of the tradition or the lineage?
The tradition would be roughly based on Sri Aurobindo and the mother, but it includes, like, when we sing songs from Judaism, Christianity, Hinduism, like nature-based songs as well. But the lineage is like very connected to Sri Aurobindo and the mother.
And what does that mean, Sri Aurobindo and the mother?
Those are two people that lived in India in this place that they created called Auroville, which is now I think has a different vibration now that they're gone. Sometimes things turn into a dogmatic feeling after the teachers are gone.
Yep.
So, but they're two teachers that lived in India.
Oh, okay. Got it. And they kind of taught together?
They did. Yeah. I don't know if I can tell you exactly. Like, he's actually Indian. She's from France originally, and then moved to India to teach with him. And around the time that she actually came, there wasn't not too long after that, Aurobindo he stepped out of teaching and was mostly writing. He's a prolific writer. There's a lot of books that he's written. And then she became sort of the face of the ashram, or like was helping develop the ashram and the interface with the outside world. And then he left his body like in the 1950s. She died in 1973. And there's this whole series of books called The Mother's Agenda that talks, it's like her journalings basically with her closest student, Satprem, around what's physically going on in her body, how things are changing and manifesting, and how that's also mirrored in the outside world and at Auroville.
It's really nourishing for me personally to hear other people talk about spiritual energy literally moving through their body and transforming their cells, because that's the whole thing for me. To me, there's no point if it's not doing that. Because that's for me, the thing that got me deeply on a spiritual path was about, there were these stuck, dense, tense energies in my body that wouldn't move through any other means. Like therapy didn't do it, and biofeedback didn't do it, and drugs didn't do it, and good drugs didn't do it, and meditation didn't do it, and 6 years of transcendental meditation didn't do it. I needed like legit God, light, or whatever we want to love, to go to like be shot into my cells to change that cement. I call it like a triangle of cement. It would start here in the throat and go down to the base of my body. And it was like cement. And I knew it was like hardened trauma or hardened something that, and I also knew that the only way it was going anywhere was through direct transmission of light. I've known that since I was 9, which is such a weird thing to know because nobody told me that. No human adult mammals said those. I just came into this life like, that's a thing, you know. Anyway, so I love hearing about it from other people who got to it in such a different way I guess I'm also wondering, did you have, you said you felt not cooked and you felt you wanted to grow. Was there like a lot of pain, or was it more just like an awareness of needing to grow? Was it gentle? Were you suffering a lot? Were you just curious?
I mean, I think I've always had that. Like I grew up in a household that like we were at the Lutheran church and then the Methodist. And then my parents had me watch Robert Schuller's Hour of Power and the Power of Positive Thinking on television. And my mom would be reading esoteric Swedenborg texts in the next room, and dad's reading the Bible. And then, you know, like I went to the Soviet Union, and then like they're like developing their spirituality around the kitchen table because, you know, religion wasn't allowed at that time, or it was just coming back into being able to be spoken about. And then I went to like a Jesuit college, and I loved the Jesuits and the nuns and the ex-Jesuits. Like I felt like everybody was, that I could really find, find that authenticity, whether they were like a Catholic, you know, a Jesuit novitiate, or...
That play that we read was written by an ex-Jesuit, just so you know.
Oh, yeah.
So that tracks.
That's so funny.
The play that we read, that you read, is written, Bill Cain is an ex-Jesuit teacher, professor, all those things.
Huh.
Awesome. Yeah, I just felt like this like seed of truth. Like I remember in college sitting with young Jesuit novitiates, and they would be like, we'd sit down by the river and there'd be nothing sexual. We'd be about the same age, but it would be like this sense of like, I feel this sense of like aspiring, like looking upward and like drinking something in. And that what like keeps going in me, kind of just propelling me forward more than anything, really.
Like a desire to drink in more of that.
Yeah, and be that, because it's so nourished. It's like so deeply nourishing.
Yes.
Compared to the best bone broth ever.
From
100%.
a cow you slaughtered yourself. I always find that like, the term inquiry comes to mind when I think of Jesuits, for example, but also that energy of attraction that you just said it. You said like it wasn't sexual, but because there's still like this like, there's a longing to connect with that person, and it's because they're engaged in inquiry, in curiosity, in the desire for something greater. And I always find that for myself in any context, I can't get down with people unless there's some spark of engagement around inquiry or desire for that further truth.
Yeah.
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 And
it's fun to engage with people around and so nourishing.
yeah. And I guess I'm hearing you talk, Sarah, about that there's inquiry, but more than that too, there's the energy of receiving, I would call it the divine, that you can feel in certain people. And then you want that. I think that's what I'm hearing you say.
Yeah, that you cut out for just a second there, but I think you said like there's the energy of, did you say something right after that?
The divine.
Yeah, there's that piece. Like that makes it like worthwhile. And it doesn't matter if it's the guy at the feed store talking about the feed or you and I talking about spiritual path. Like the one podcast that you guys did where you were clearing a bunch and it was like so intense. I'm not saying very many words around that, but it wasn't very many podcasts back.
Was it about the election where we were sort of clearing?
Yeah, it was recent.
Katie went really, really deep and was crying and doing a lot of amazing clearing around that. Was it that one?
Yeah. Yeah. Like that felt so important and potent and like an honor to listen to and like be a part of by listening to it. Yeah. So that sort of like those sort of experiences
I see.
are what draw me.
I see.
I feel an affinity for and an aspiration for.
Yes. So experiences of the beyond and experiences of feeling in your body, knowing the divine, the light, the beyond, the whatever, feeling that, being a part of that is what you're after.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
So let me see if I can frame my question a different way. I think for myself, I was looking for such a specific thing when I was like very clear and very specific what I was looking for when I got into this work. And then the light, the work, the divine gave me exactly what I was looking for. And then the results of it have been nothing I was prepared for. Like I didn't know my life would look the way it turned into looking, but I did. But regardless, I got what I came for. So I think what I'm trying to I'm probably trying to pin you down more than is useful for you, because it sounds like it's not a very pinned down thing for you. But the reason I keep pushing the question is I'm leaning into what specifically were you looking for and are you looking for? And I hear you saying that aspirational, it's sort of like when you described the looking up that the Jesuits had at the river, of like looking up and going, like breathing into the heart, the feeling of relief and nourishment that comes from a spiritual connection. To me, that's like a specific thing a person might be looking for, or just to taste the beyond, to taste the bigger picture. And I also heard you say you were looking for grounding, and you were looking to not flit around like a butterfly, and you were looking, and now you continue to be curious about and look for all of those things. Or maybe you could tell us a little bit about what has it turned into for you? Like, what do you look for now from it?
Good question. Like, I think the grounding and the needing to ground down and not be so flitty was more the gift of what the Zen Center and that Zen tradition gave to me by asking me to show up at the cushion at 4:20 every morning and, follow the bell. So that was that time period.
Okay.
And then having integrated that and moved through that, then I think what it's become for me is like, this becoming, like letting, and I'm sorry, I can't be more
No, you're doing great. You're doing great.
Yeah.
I'm trying to pin you down, probably way more down pinny than needs to be pinned.
Yeah. I mean, I honestly, like deeply in my most deep place, I really want to just be a vessel. I want to be a vessel for the divine. And I want that to flow through me in a way where I don't obstruct it, and it can be as much service as possible in the world.
Yeah, see, that's what I was looking for, is like, what is this about for you now? And that makes total sense. Like, I relate to that very deeply. Forgive me if I'm speaking too loud right now. My microphone was doing weird stuff. So now I'm like projecting like I'm on a stage. But yeah, that I really hear that. And did you always have that? Like when you were a kid, did you have a sense of any of this stuff when you were a kid? Like, or did it find you later in life?
I mean, I think I did, like, because my mom would read me like passages from the mystical Swedenborg texts, and she was she's, my mom has her own challenges, but she's an artist. She is like a spiritual seeker in her own right. So she gave me the taste of that when I was a kid. Like, I remember being at Gonzaga University, the Jesuit school where I was at, and she sent this guy through that like bought me the Celestine Prophecy book, like when that was like a thing.
Yeah.
Like, like I just would eat it up. Or I'd go to, like, there was like a mystical Christianity class that I could take that was like wonderful.
Wow.
I've always been drawn to that sort of magical, but like in a true way. Like, I also have those Midwestern roots coming from Minnesota originally, but growing up in Montana, where I have this practicality about me that is sometimes a little bit like turned off by new age stuff that feels like it's not grounded, or not real, or not authentic. And so I get a little bit like growly and grumpy around that sort of stuff.
Yep.
Because it's like it seems unfair that those things are, but it's just part of the process. But it feels like it inauthenticates things that are authentic, or it's harder for people to really get to those other things that are real and true.
100%. I have a thing right now going on where I'm so sad when I'm on Facebook and I'm seeing people post, like I'm seeing spiritual, woo-woo, lefty, liberal, mystical people posting shit that like if you wear a mask, you're a slave, and mask wearing is unhealthy. And I'm like, there you go, making the woo look so bad to the people who, it's such a poor representation of, what the light, if you will, has to offer. I mean, of what the whole journey really is about. And then so many people get so turned away and turned off by the entire possibility of the path because one crazy lady said mask wearing is stupid,
Yeah, I have this curiosity around how the right is, like the extreme right is looping around to the extreme left, like this circle or something.
Yeah.
Like, what? I'm so curious about what that is energetically, or what.
I always feel like they meet around the backside. Like there's this traveling around the back of the tree, and they've met in the back.
Yes.
Like, we're over here looking exactly the same.
So sweet. Like, totally. I'm having that experience a lot when I read people's posts where I'm going, wait a minute. Is this a right-wing nut job or a left-wing nut job? And I can't fucking tell.
Or a Russian bot. There's the other possibility.
I sort of love that you can't tell, right? You're like, I don't know, it's just a person being
crazy.
Yeah, crazy.
Oh my God. You're making me think too, Sarah, when you're describing your experiences of this thing that's been happening for me since I got to Mancus, which I keep probably boring Cassidy to death with by repeating over and over, on this podcast. I think because it's so taken me aback, and it's so palpable, and it's so real to me, which is the energy of the land here does this thing for me. It's like, I've told you about this too, Sarah, like, it is working me the same way all of my spiritual teachers have worked me. So like when I went to the first healing school I went to, and I sat with Sidi al-Jamal, the perfected master from Jerusalem, and sat in the room with him 7 days in a row, 5 times a year, 4 years in a row. Just by him being in the room, he emanated such light that it would change my cells. Like you're talking about, I would pass out, or I would scream, or I would cry, or I would laugh, or just feel changed, or come to know God. All kinds of shit happened just from that guy being in the room. Similarly, just by sitting on this land here, oh my gosh, there's so much happening in my nervous system and in my emotional body. I find that a lot of the energy that's a lot of the teachings that are being brought through my system from the land here have to do with very specifically the womb and the third, second, and first chakra, and the legs. It's all the lower chakra stuff and the purification of all of that. And what Cassidy and I were talking about, and when we were joking with you about, we already covered vomit, and we've been talking about, whatever, farts and vomit or whatever. It's because I think I told you that on Thanksgiving, I had that strange vomit experience after eating pie after my dog was hurt. But then I had it again last night, and I could feel that it was something to do with the espresso I had in the afternoon. Like usually I have an espresso in the morning, and I try not to have it after, 12 or whatever. I try not to have it in the afternoon, so I'm not like awake forever. But I had a second one during our reading of that play because I was like, I'm not going to make it through if I don't, whatever. Mm-hmm. Anyway, then, 2 a.m. I'm like thrust to my feet with the need to vomit. And I could feel that it was the espresso wanting to literally like pull itself out of my meridians. I could feel it in my heart meridians, the heart meridians that run down the arms. I don't know if you're familiar with those or whatever, but anyway, my sense of what's happening for me is that it's the spiritual teacher of this land is working me quite intensely. And I can't function the way old Katie used to function. That's how profound the shifts are that are coming into my nervous system just through sitting on this freaking land. And the only other time that ever happened to me was, I've probably said this on here before as well, but was when I went to India. Long story long, I flew 30 hours and, a bunch of plane shifts and no sleep at all. And I get to Mumbai and it's the dead of night and I'm exhausted and I just want to sleep, And I get to the hotel room and I can't like take a shower because you're not supposed to get the water in your mouth. So I'm like showering with bottles of water and like, it was just kind of uncomfortable physically. And then I sat down on the bed, I put my bags down, I sat down on the bed and I started to sob and I cried for a good hour. And I had a girlfriend who I was texting back in the States and she was asking me questions to help me kind of grok, psychically or whatever, what was happening. And what I got to was the land of India is so purely spiritual. It is transmitting divine light, just the land, that it was working me and it was lining me up with its vibrational frequency and its alignment and its awareness so that I could, it moved me forward on my spiritual path. And then I always tell this story about how for the next 10 days, I was in Mumbai for 10 days. I slept for about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours a day. And I would just roam the streets and go to temples and roam the streets and go to restaurants and roam the streets. I was in heaven. I felt like I was high as a kite, blissed out, in heaven, learning, exploring, having such a good time. I got back on the plane. I went back to America. I landed in Northern California and I went to my boyfriend at the time's house. He was out of town. And I slept for 3 days straight, day and night, day and night, day and night, 3 days and nights in a row, slept. Because that's how high up I was vibrationally. And that's how low down I crashed just by going from India to America. All of which is a very long-winded way of saying I'm very humbled by and blown away by what the land here is doing to me, through me, for me, etc. And it reminds me, I hope I can put this into words, but energetically, what I'm experiencing from this land reminds me of how you talk about your teacher. Everything you've said to us today, I'm like, that is happening for me. That's not correct. An aspect of that. There's an aspect of that happening for me through my body in a way that is creating a silent, soft, quiet expanse within parts of my body that could receive that silent, soft, quiet expanse no other way but then directly from the earth. And my whole journey with all these different paths and practices has been embodying the divine and having that silent, spacious light move through every cell of my body. It's just that I didn't realize that the 3, 2, and 1 and the legs needed this land for the next layer. And I'm just kind of baffled by it. I find it fascinating and interesting, but also like, what? So I think I've been wanting to share that with you just because it can seem like when people come from different directions energetically or spiritually that it's so different. Like I remember one time you and I joked about this, Sarah, that it was like my kind of way seemed kind of intense or theatrical to you or dramatic maybe. And I was like, yeah, but the drama, if there's drama in what I'm transmitting or receiving, is because it's busting through the layers of density in people's beings that keep them from the quiet, soft, spacious light that we come to inhabit. Like I am like a lightning bolt that dramatically busts through people's like walls, but it's to create this thing we're talking about, this kind of, I don't even know how to put it in words, but this thing we're talking about.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that. And getting to know you more too has been really fruitful, and I'm really thankful for it. And you're such a different healer and I've been around a lot of healers too, and I just have never met anyone like you, which is awesome. That's a gift.
God willing. But I had a woman open my records at some point and say, because you know how in the spiritual traditions, like, anyway, that's a long-winded way. The shortest way to say it is, she said, huh, she's looking at me, you know, through the soul level, which is what the records do. She goes, huh, I've never seen someone whose path is to shake humanity by the shoulders into consciousness. And I go, thank you. Yeah, that matches my fucking reality, which is not a traditional way to be delivering light.
I love it.
That makes me laugh. Just knowing you, that tracks. And it's probably the only reason I can do this podcast with you is you're that version.
Thank you. At least it's not terrifying to all the people. Well, would you like us to open your record, Sarah? Would you like to do that?
I have a question that I wrote even that I want to ask.
Yay! Oh, goody. Okay. And is your full legal name Sarah Syverson?
Sarah May Syverson.
Oh my. Oh May.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right, let's do eat. So we'll close our eyes and we'll breathe consciously into the low belly, dropping into the body and the feeling space even more fully than we are already, just by all this talking and connecting. We've dropped in nice and deep already. I mean, okay. So let's become aware now of the midline from the root chakra through the second, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the top of the head. We're going to see a softball-sized ball of light sitting in each of those chakras, just for the sake of getting in touch with the midline of each of our own bodies. And we'll say that that light is bright and white of each of those softball-sized balls of light. And now let's imagine that each of those softball-sized balls of bright white light expand to be the size of a basketball, staying right in your chakra system. And then let's see those basketballs now merging into one another, forming a straight up and down line of energy from the root of you up through the crown. And then we'll just have the intention that through the bottoms of, as that midline is solidifying or opening or expanding, we'll just feel into the bottoms of each foot. We'll see a little foot chakra opening up at the bottom center of each foot, which then allows the bottom of each foot to become an open window or a plane, an open plane that allows the energetic, the electromagnetic field of your body to connect and commune with the electromagnetic field of the earth below you. Let's visualize now 500 energetic roots extending down into the earth from each foot, down to the part of the earth that you connect with most deeply. Whether you know about that or not, doesn't matter. We'll just have that intention. So those roots go from the left foot and the right foot, 500 from each foot. So 1,000 tree roots energetically extending from ourselves into the planet. Okay. And so we do acknowledge from here the forces of light, asking for guidance, direction, and courage to know the truth as it is revealed for our highest good and the highest good of everyone connected to us. O Holy Spirit of God, protect me, please, from all forms of self-centeredness and direct my attention to the work at hand. Help me to know Sarah May Syverson in the light of the Akashic Records, to see Sarah May Syverson through the eyes of the Lords of the Records, and enable me to share the wisdom and compassion that the masters, teachers, and loved ones of Sarah May Syverson have for Sarah May Syverson. And I'll go quiet for just a moment. And then let's just consciously intend for just a moment that at the crown chakra, or the top of the head, we're just going to imagine that chakra opening like a funnel, like a V-shaped funnel that opens wide into the heavens. Yeah. Okay. And I'm just going to ask the Lords, Masters, and Teachers of the Akashic Records of Sarah May Syverson to clear from either of us whatever might be in the way of seeing clearly, knowing clearly, receiving clearly, feeling clearly, whatever guidance and or healing energy that desires to come through for her now. Okay. All right. Okay. So where would you like to begin, Sarah?
I have two questions.
Yes.
Is that okay? Yeah.
Of course.
Mm-hmm. The first one is what is most important for me to know for next steps on my path?
Spiritual path?
The whole thing.
Okay. Are we talking about career? Are we talking about family? Are we talking about yourself as related to yourself? Are we talking about yourself as related to God? Are we talking about, could we hone in just a little?
Yeah. Okay. So the spiritual path, like the highest, what's next? Like what needs to be cleared? What needs to be seen? What needs to be understood in order to be like of deeper service, true service?
Oh, okay. That's much clearer. Thank you. Or I should say that's more specific, and that allows me to hear more easily. Thank you. Well, interesting. So they're talking about, excuse me, there's an energy that wants to move. Let's have you drop for just a moment into your second chakra, and we'll just kind of bring a bunch of light there for the sake of the thing we're going to say in a moment. In other words, this light transmission is facilitating the very thing we're about to articulate. Feeling into your second chakra and your first chakra below it. And allowing yourself to receive in there. So, authenticity and joy. When you are functioning from authentically speaking up for what is true, you are organically, naturally in alignment. When you are following joy for you, you are naturally, authentically, intuitively, organically in alignment. So service, as we're sure you know, is not martyrdom. Service is being who you are to the fullest degree and living into that which the true essential nature of you would have you live into. So how do you know what that is? Be authentic to a new level. We're going to keep moving energy here and follow what's joyful. Boundaries are another piece. People pleasing, doesn't work. It doesn't pay off in the end. You drain your life force. you're already quite skilled, they say, at asking, let's see, do I really want to do this thing? Do I really want to do this thing? One moment. A bunch of energy clearing. Next level is, how do I really want to do it? And you mentioned this in our conversation yesterday about how to take care of the body and the nervous system inside of creation processes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's what they're getting at. Self-care, authentically taking care of the self above all else, and following what is actually joyful. Sometimes we can't find the joy in a project that is joyful because we're drained, but we're not being honest about the fact that we're drained. So you will maybe sometimes confuse your own drainedness with the project or the person.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the project or the person per se. It's how much of yourself did you give away yesterday out of people pleasing or whatever it may be, such that you don't have the spark or the alignment or the ground within you, specifically in the first, second, third, and fourth chakras, mostly first, second, and third, as a result.
Yeah.
Does that make some sense?
Yeah, that really, really resonates. Thank you.
Okay. Let's work just for a moment before we go to the second question with the second chakra. Again, if you could feel into it. Okay. First, second, third. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So what's happening for you, Sarah, in your body right now, if you don't mind sharing just a little bit?
Yeah, I feel a lot of energy kind of moving circularly, like this sort of motion, like up through the pelvis, up through the spine, the heart, the throat, out the mouth, up top of the head, and then out, and then circulating back in, like this sort of sense. It feels really energizing, and it feels very it feels wonderful. It feels very clear and bright and joyful.
Okay, good. Okay, great. Yay, that's great.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. What was the second question?
The second question, what will Katie and I do together in fun, joy, abundance, ease, and service to the divine? And what would be important to keep in mind and heart before, during, and after the process?
When you say, what will we create? That question they're like, no. So, but the second part, what was it? What is important to keep in mind?
Yeah, what is important to keep in mind and heart before, during, and after the process?
So everything they just said.
Yeah, it seems like it got answered.
Yep. And so when they say no, what they mean is like, don't disempower yourself about that. In other words, what do you authentically, joyfully desire to create? And go from there. Now, another piece for you is try, they say, try, beloved, try, please, not to get ahead of yourself in terms of the long-term scary overwhelm. Rather, stay in the present moment with the current creation. You can set into motion projects long-term without sending your energy field forward in time while leaving energetic space inside your body for peace, even in the midst of creative chaos. Okay, so that's two things. One is plan for the future, but don't send your energy forward in time to future projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yes, because for you, there can be overwhelm when you send your energy ahead. Stay here now. You say, we're going to do this show and that thing and this thing and that thing. Great. Now forget about all of it and just do what's required now.
Yeah.
Always coming back to the eternal now.
Mm-hmm.
And the eternal, what's required of me, God, actually today? Sometimes it's one thing. Even if you have 6 plates spinning in the air, project-wise, what's required today? You'll know in your body. Now, where you'll get tripped up is the mind. The mind will say, but I should, but I should, but I should. The nervous system always knows. Right, okay. So let's see. That was 1 was don't go ahead of time. And then 2 was, oh yeah. And right. And so staying, I guess, maybe staying with the authenticity and the joy. No, but there's something else. Hold on. Let me get it again. Nobody remembers? We just said it. Okay. I don't remember. So that's okay. Let me listen again. Well, right now it's like this. They're like, hold it. Oh, right. Hold it gently. Hold it with space inside your body, even inside the creative chaos.
Yeah.
Don't give yourself so deeply over to getting lost in the fun and the crazy. And I'm lost and it's so fun and crazy. And then notice how that energy is like up and out.
Yeah.
We're suggesting, this is fun. This is spacious. This is joy. And I remain connected to my center and the spaciousness inside of me. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it's a grounded, kind of solid joy.
Yes, because you won't drain yourself if you never leave yourself.
Yeah.
Okay, one thing at a time. Don't go to overwhelm by sending your energy in the future, and stay right here, right now, in the body, spacious, grounded joy. Yes. I mean, okay. Anything else? Oh, they want me to tell you. I forgot to tell you this. I remember when we talked a few weeks ago about, or whenever it was, about I was going to open the records and find out some stuff.
Yeah.
So I did.
Yeah.
So we can have a chat about that.
Okay.
And then your job is to be authentically present and true about all the things that I share.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. It's really good because I can get swept one way or the other so easily. And so it takes some time for me to digest it and then come back and see what really resonates.
I hear that.
And then if there's new information, then I have to kind of take that in, go away, integrate it, and then see what resonates. Because I do like that sense of like getting, oh, this is so fun. But I don't love that feeling. I love
yeah. That's it.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Katie.
Oh, my pleasure. Truly. It's a pleasure. It's so easy to be in your field. All right. Nothing else? No last minute anything, Sarah?
Nothing that's coming to mind. My mind is just blank.
Okay. So I do want to thank the masters, teachers, and loved ones for their love and compassion, the lords of the records for their point of view, and the Holy Spirit of life for all knowledge and healing. I ask that you send all of Sarah May Syverson's energy back to herself. Return her, please, to her complete human wholeness now. The divine portal and the Akashic records for Sarah May Syverson are now closed. Amen. Divine portal and the Akashic records for Sarah May Syverson are now closed. The divine portal and the Akashic records for Sarah May Syverson are now closed. Amen. 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 There, I get such a kick out of there is such a distinct feeling when when the energy of the person I'm reading for is going back to themselves. It's such a fucking wild thing to get to experience in this life. I can literally just feel the Katie Rubin-ness becoming, it's like something is pulled out of the middle column of me that returns me to communion with the Katie Rubin-ness of Katie Rubin. And it's so distinctly different. And the way that it's different each time, obviously, right, is unique to the individual. Oh, it's so cool. Every time I think I don't want to do this shit anymore, which is often, I'm often in my ego I'm not doing this fucking woo-woo shit anymore. I'm not fucking doing it. I am done with this woo-woo shit. I just want a normal life, and I'm just going to be a lady who does stuff. We just drink.
Eat Fritos, watch football.
Yeah, just going to have some scotch and go on a date and make some kids or something. What do people do? Whatever. And then I get to experience something like that. And I'm like, what the hell else would I rather be doing? Every time it's like that.
Thank you.
Thank you. I hope it was helpful.
That was awesome. What are you talking about?
Good.
Helpful.
Oh, good. Good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't always know. It's like I'm having my own experience of it that I'm like, boy, I hope that's useful out there.
Yeah. It's really useful. You're such an interesting person to me because I feel like you are so direct and you're loving. You're fierce too, I think, like part of the 8, I think maybe the Enneagram, but just who you are really. And so it like calls to me also to like, I feel like I've had a lot of friendships that are not less than, but like I'm able to be like, I mean, it's probably the 2, like I can help you, or there's not necessarily this equanimity, and that helps me rise to challenges, and hopefully I like help you in that way too in some way. But I feel like you are a potent soul. And I know I've said this to you before, but I really mean it, that I was like, when I was in the middle of that big show with Purple Fox Conundrum, in the middle of that field with a bunch of people that wanted to do stuff, but didn't really want to put the time in or whatever as artists, like I was like calling for you. And now you're here and I'm like, wow, she's like, whoa. Like, and it asked me, it's asking for me to be bigger, like that bigger in myself too. So yeah, thank you. I know we're probably done here, so I'll let it wrap up. Thank you.
That's so beautiful. Thank you for saying that. I think I made this joke with you before, but like, I keep thinking I followed the Akashic beings of light here, but maybe you just pinged me from here. You just like, your pull was so strong that I was like, God is calling me to Colorado.
Well, God, but Sarah.
Or Sarah. So funny. Well, thank you for being with us today. This was great. So great. It's so nice to get to ask people specific stuff about their spiritual journey and what it's like for you individually. So thank you for being so open.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. Thanks to all of you guys. Appreciate it.
Okay. We love you.
Love you too.
Bye.
Take care, you guys.
All right.
Bye.
Have fun. Oh, there's 2 deers outside drinking from the pond.
Aw.
And one is a boy deer and one is a girl deer, and they're going to have sex.
Yes, on your porch. And break your fence.
It's funny because I'm being silly about it, but right now is there's some kind of mating.
Is it rutting season?
I think so. Because like, it's constantly like, oh, there's a doe and there's a buck and they're chasing each other down the street. And oh, they went away. And then they came back tired. And you're like, I know what happened there. Come up here, beast. And then the small canine likes to go out and like, she plays with the deer. So deers are like huge, right?
Yeah.
And Squeeze is like, not. She goes out and she goes up to him and she's like, she does this play thing where she's like, I'm coming at you. I'm running away. I'm coming at you. I'm running away, like a little dart. And the deers are just like, this is interesting. This small thing here.
I'm glad they haven't trampled her or something.
I know, but she keeps wanting to instigate them to play the way a dog would. And they just kind of go, they just look at her and like, I guess I'm supposed to get reactive now. I'm not having any response to you. You're very small.
That's probably good.
I know, because they could really
deer
squish her.
Are dangerous, apparently. Like I read
they?
a thing. There's like more deaths by deer than there are by snake bites or something weird like that. Because with the hooves, they just go and like puncture your rib cage and you're dead.
Really?
Sorry, that was a dark thing to bring into this beautiful conversation.
One time I had a client, and then we'll wrap up. I know we're done. But I had a client who couldn't get over grudges. She had a lot of grudges. And we went in, and there was a past life. Have I told this story? And she was a deer. And like I was taken into her past life, and she was a deer across a river, and I was the hunter, and I shot her. And as the bullet was traveling across the river to hit her in the chest and end her life, she went, fuck you, and I'm never letting go. And I was like, well, this is the first time I've been taken to someone's past life where they were a deer. That's cool.
And did you like go back and freeze that bullet or anything?
No, you like
I don't know
dissolve.
how that works.
What you do is you bring light to it and it just dissolves the whole picture. So then the remaining feelings and the needs that come from the picture just evaporate.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah,
I
it's
like
cool. She emailed me later and was like, well, I thought I was going to do a bunch of sessions with you, but I don't have any grudges anymore. And I was like,
Wow.
hallelujah.
Yeah.
Except pay me more money. Okay, great to see everyone.
Awesome.
Do your work.
Do your work.
Do your work.
Do your work.
Do your work. Do your work.
Do your work. Together. 1, 2, 3.
Do
your work.
What are you asking for? All of the answers? Say what? All of the answers? Yeah, all the answers.
Hey guys, thanks for listening. We'd love to hear from you. Please email us with your questions so that we have questions to answer in the Akashic Records. Our email address is allanswerspod@gmail.com. That's allanswerspod@gmail.com. And if you'd like to find us on Facebook or Twitter, it's @allanswerspod, @allanswerspod. Thank you. Yeah, there seems to be a delay. What if you say words?
Words, more words.
That was a Sounds Awesome production.